Hello, welcome back to the podcast. How are you today? I hope you're doing fine. It's grey and miserable here, so the conditions are perfect for podcasting, for just staying here and recording another episode for you to listen to. Before I begin, I have to just remember to say this in response to an email that I got just the other day. So I need to say hello to Lucio. Hello, Lucio, who lives in Argentina. And Lucio's dad recently introduced him to the show. So Lucio's dad, Sebastian, although I think in Argentina that's pronounced Sebastian, isn't it? Something like that. Anyway, Sebastian introduced his son Lucio to the podcast recently. So hello, Lucio. Welcome to the podcast. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. I hope you enjoy the episodes and continue to listen to them, because obviously, if you keep listening, then your English is just going to skyrocket. Okay, so keep listening, and you know, with a supple young brain like yours, being exposed to this much English on a regular basis, then you know that just the sky is the limit in terms of the benefits that this can have. I also should say thank you to Sebastian for introducing his son to the podcast and making sure that this podcast continues, right? That we introduce the show to the new generation, the next generation of humans. Right, good. I'm glad I did that. Hello, and also hello to anyone else who is brand new to this podcast. Here's a new episode, and there is it's not a PDF, but there's some notes that I'm going to read from at certain points during the episode, and you can find those notes on the episode page on my website. Okay, so I'll be reading from some notes, and also I'm going to be reading from a website as well. So anyway, the link for all that stuff is in the description of this episode. So let's get started. I'm going to now read from those notes. Here we go. So this episode is called Luke Takes the MBTI Personality Test. Hello. There I am saying hello to you again. In this much requested episode, I'm going to take the MBTI Personality Test and use it to help you learn English. I'll go through the test, answering all the questions, and I'll explain vocabulary that comes up along the way. I expect there'll be plenty of English here that we use to describe personality, behaviour, feelings, psychology, and psychological testing. So there's probably going to be loads of stuff that you can pick up from this. I also want to discuss this test, which despite its massive popularity is criticised for not being reliable or accurate. So what's going on here? Why is this test so popular? Can it really identify our true personality? What kind of personality type am I? And what about you? You can take the test yourself if you want. It's free, and you'll find a link in the description. So I said before, this was a much requested episode. I've had a number of comments or emails from people asking me to go through this test. It's a popular test in lots of countries. So here's a comment that I got from a listener. I received this comment ages ago in response to the Q&A I did for episode 800. Do you remember that? Episode 800, it was in 3 parts, and I did a big listener Q&A. And there was one question about the MBTI test. So this comment is from Jackie, who some people might remember. She has commented on episodes before. I've read out her comments. She was at a couple of Lepster meetups in London. Anyway, Jackie said this: "These Q&A episodes are so fun. Thanks, Luke. I agree with one question. It would be really interesting if you do the MBTI personality test and talk us through your choices. On 16personalities.com, they have really good questions and good analysis of your result. I have a feeling that you might be ENFJ, aka the protagonist, Luke. Extroverted, intuitive, feeling, judging. That's what ENFJ means. Now, if you don't know what these codes mean, ENFJ, INFJ and stuff like that, that will be explained in a minute. But these are the different personality types that you get from this MBTI personality test. So Jackie thinks that I would be ENFJ, the protagonist, extroverted, intuitive, feeling, judging. And Jackie continues, she says, I'm INFJ, the introverted version. Okay then. So first of all, what's the MBTI personality test? So the MBTI Personality Test, in case you don't know, is a very popular personality test which promises to help you learn all about yourself. So here's some information from Wikipedia. I would read it from the 16 Personalities website, but the information they give about the text is very rambling, and I'm not entirely convinced by it. So I would rather go for something a bit more objective. And in this case, I'm going to go for Wikipedia. So here's what Wikipedia says about this test, right? So here's a description. So the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, that's MBTI, is a pseudoscientific self-report questionnaire that claims to indicate differing personality types. Now, Wikipedia defines it as being pseudoscientific. So pseudoscience or pseudoscientific means that it's not real science. It's not objectively correct science. So it's kind of like fake science, really. And that's how Wikipedia defines this. A pseudoscientific self-report questionnaire that claims to indicate differing personality types. The test attempts to assign a binary value to each of 4 categories: introversion or extroversion, sensing or intuition, thinking or feeling, and judging or perceiving. Right? So these are the different categories with binary qualities on each side: introversion, extroversion, sensing or intuition, thinking or feeling, and judging or perceiving. And it gives you a binary score, meaning you're basically one or the other. Each question puts you in one of those categories, more or less. One letter from each category is taken to produce a 4-letter test result representing one of 16 possible personalities, such as INFP or ESTJ. Okay, so you got four sections with 2 opposite categories, 2 opposite traits on either side. So that's a total of 8 possible traits, but the possible combinations result in 16 different personality types. The MBTI was constructed by 2 Americans, Catherine Cook Briggs and her daughter Isabel Briggs Myers, who were inspired by the book Psychological Types, written by Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung. You might be familiar with Jung. He is a big figure in the world of psychology. So Carl Jung wrote Psychological Types, his book, and this inspired Catherine and her daughter Isabel to construct this test. The test was first published in the 1960s and was based on work done by Catherine and Isabel in the 1940s. The test claims to be backed up by research and is used by millions of people around the world, especially in the world of work, where employers often use it to work out the competencies of their staff. They use it to put employees into different personality categories in order to help place them into roles at work that they are most suitable for. So if you take this test, you could take it in your free time, but a lot of people do take this test as some sort of human resources development system, which is designed to try to categorize people in order to put them in the right positions at work that would make them as productive and useful as possible. The test is divided into questions, and your answers put you somewhere on a sliding scale between certain opposite personality traits. At the end, the test gives you a personality profile, putting you in one of 16 personality categories or personality types. I'll go through those types in a moment. So this test is extremely popular, and actually Jackie is not the first person to ask me to take the test and talk about it. So the plan in the episode is to do 3 things. First, I want to take the test and talk you through my decision-making process for each question. I'm curious to see what personality type I'm going to get. Will Jackie be right about me being an ENFJ, the protagonist? So that's obviously the first thing I'm going to do. And also I want to explain different vocabulary or possibly grammar that comes up in the test. I'm sure there'll be loads of words and phrases to describe things like personality traits, feelings, ways of thinking, decision-making processes, and so on. So we will hunt for some vocabulary. Then I also want to talk about the test itself. I want to evaluate the test and consider whether it really is a valid and reliable test of someone's character. So, 16 personalities. Let's look at the 16 personality types developed by Myers-Briggs. As we go through these profiles, right, as we go through all of these, you can consider these things. So, first of all, what category type are you? So, which one do you identify with? And also, which one do you think I am? And you'll find out, apparently, when I take the test. So if you're a long-term listener to this podcast, you'll probably know me to a certain extent, and you probably have got certain ideas of what my personality is. So which personality type do you think I am? Do you think I'm the protagonist or something else? And also, you as well. Before you take the test, consider which personality type you think you might be. So let's have a look at all of the different personality types then. This is on 16personalities.com. So the first one is analysts, right? So that there are sections. I think there are maybe 4 different sections. The first section is analysts, people who analyze stuff. And the first type there is the architect. Right, we know what an architect is. It's someone who designs buildings, right? But in this case, an architect is an INTJ A or INTJT, whatever that means. So architects are imaginative and strategic thinkers with a plan for everything. Okay. Then we have logicians. A logician is described as being innovative inventors. Surely if you're an inventor, you're innovative. You don't need to say an innovative inventor. That's unnecessary. But anyway, innovative inventors with an unquenchable thirst for knowledge. If you have a thirst, normally we have a thirst for water, right? If you're thirsty, you have a thirst for water, but you can have a thirst for other things. In this case, a thirst for knowledge. That's THIRST, a thirst for knowledge. And to quench your thirst. So if you're thirsty, you want water, you drink water, glug, 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 and then you quench your thirst, right? So you give yourself water and you're no longer thirsty. So that's to quench your thirst. You can quench your thirst for knowledge by reading lots of books or doing experiments or something. And if you have an unquenchable thirst for something, in this case knowledge, it means this thirst can never be quenched. So it never stops, it never ends. You'll always want more knowledge. So innovative inventors who always want more knowledge. Then we have the commander. Bold, imaginative and strong-willed leaders, always finding a way or making one. Okay, then you've got the debater. Debaters are smart and curious thinkers who cannot resist an intellectual challenge. Okay, moving on. So in the next set, we have diplomats. Okay, and the first type of diplomat is the advocate. An advocate. Now, normally the word advocate is used to describe a person who talks on someone else's behalf. They represent someone, and we normally think of a lawyer as an advocate, someone who represents a client in a courtroom. But in this case, the advocates in this test are quiet and mystical, yet very inspiring and tireless idealists. Quiet and mystical. Mystical? That's an interesting word to use in a psychological test. But anyway, quiet and mystical, yet very inspiring and tireless idealists. So an idealist is someone who sort of has a vision of the world, an ideal sort of vision of things. And if you're a tireless idealist, it means you never get tired. You will never stop being idealistic. Then you've got the mediator. Poetic, kind and altruistic people, always eager to help a good cause. Poetic, I think you understand. Kind, we know. Altruistic, that means just basically wanting to help other people. Okay. Then we have the protagonist. This is the one that Jackie associates with me. The protagonist is charismatic and inspiring. Charismatic and inspiring leaders, able to mesmerize their listeners. So I think I understand why Jackie associates this one with me, because apparently I'm able to mesmerize my listeners. Am I a charismatic and inspiring leader. Then we have the campaigner, and campaigners are enthusiastic, creative and sociable free spirits who can always find a reason to smile. If you're a free spirit, it just means that you've got a free mind, and you kind of, no one can stop you thinking about all the things you want to think about and doing the things you want to do. And you're sort of very open-minded. So enthusiastic, creative and sociable free spirits who can always find a reason to smile. Then we have sentinels, including the logistician. So logisticians are practical and fact-minded individuals whose reliability cannot be doubted. Practical, so they come down to earth. Fact-minded individuals, so that's obviously different to these other ones, like the mediator or the campaigner, who is kind of like a free spirit. Sentinels appear to have their feet on the ground. Practical people who deal in objective facts and things. Practical, fact-minded individuals whose reality cannot be doubted. Their reliability cannot be doubted. You can always trust their version of things. Then you've got the defender. Very dedicated and warm protectors, always ready to defend their loved ones. And the executive. So executives are excellent administrators, unsurpassed at managing things or people. Okay. And then we have the consul. Extraordinarily caring, social and popular people, always eager to help. All right. And then we have explorers. The last category. The first one being the virtuoso. Bold and practical experimenters, masters of all kinds of tools. Bold and practical experimenters. Okay. They like to experiment and they're brave. Masters of all kinds of tools. So the picture suggests that virtuosos would be like good with tools, like practical, good with their hands, good at doing DIY and stuff like that. Then you've got the adventurer. So these are flexible and charming artists, always ready to explore and experience something new. And then the entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are smart, energetic and very perceptive people who truly enjoy living on the edge. Smart, okay, clever, energetic, right, full of energy, very perceptive people. They're able to notice and perceive things like, for example, changes in society or how people feel about things, who truly enjoy living on the edge. So they like to do extreme sports, they take risks and things. And then you've got the entertainer. Spontaneous, energetic and enthusiastic people. Life is never boring around them, and they're certainly never irritating at all, no. Spontaneous, energetic and enthusiastic people. Life is never boring around them. Okay. So which one do you feel like? Which one do you think is me? I mean, I could go through these again. I mean, which one do I think I am? Maybe I can try and do that. Analysts, imaginative, strategic thinkers with a plan for everything. I don't feel like I'm great at strategy, although I have to say, as an English teacher, I do a lot of planning, and in podcasting, a lot of it is about planning. So, to an extent, the logician, innovative inventors with an unquenchable thirst for knowledge. I'm not sure about inventing things. I'm not really an inventor, but I'm curious about the world. I certainly have a thirst for knowledge. The commander, bold, imaginative and strong-willed leaders, always finding a way or making one. For example, if they can't find a way through, they'll just smash their way through. That doesn't really feel like me. That's more of I imagine a sort of Margaret Thatcher type person. Debater, smart and curious thinkers. I like to think that I don't know if I'm smart, but I like to think I'm a curious thinker. And I quite like an intellectual challenge. The picture suggests someone who likes to debate, someone who likes to engage in intellectual debates and things, which is not really me. Diplomats. So the advocate, quiet and mystical, yet very inspiring and tireless idealists. The diplomats seem like hippies to me. I don't think I'm that quiet. I don't know how you could be mystical, really. Mysticism, it's like it relates to magic, doesn't it? Very inspiring and tireless idealists. I'm not sure I'm an idealist. I'm a bit more practical than that. The mediator, poetic, kind and altruistic people, always eager to help a good cause. I think I'm fairly altruistic, but I'm not that poetic, really. Protagonists, charismatic and inspiring leaders. Yeah, of course, I'm the host of a podcast and I mesmerise my listeners, apparently. I suppose there's some charisma that's involved in that. I don't know if I'm a leader, though. I don't really feel like a leader outside of being the host of a podcast. Other than that, I don't know if I otherwise demonstrate leadership qualities in other aspects of my life. The campaigner, enthusiastic, creative and sociable free spirits who can always find a reason to smile. Well, I'm enthusiastic, I'm fairly creative, I'm quite sociable. I'm a bit of a free spirit in my heart, I suppose. I like to do things my own way. Always find a reason to smile. I feel like I'm quite optimistic and I like to be positive. So, that could be me. Sentinels, the logistician, practical, fact-minded individuals whose reliability cannot be doubted. I don't feel like I do. That sounds like a mathematician or something. Doesn't feel like me. Defender, very dedicated and warm protectors, always ready to defend their loved ones. Well, that sounds like me in respect to my family. If you're thinking about my kids, I'm definitely dedicated and warm protector. And I'm always ready to defend my loved ones. I mean, I can't think of a situation where my loved ones are being attacked. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I think I'm always ready to defend them. Executive, excellent administrators, unsurpassed at managing things or people. The sort of person who likes to manage other people. They like to keep a diary and a schedule. Maybe they like to tell other people what to do, when to do it, where to do it. That's not really me. I've never wanted to be a manager. I've never wanted to work in admin in any way, and I always avoided that kind of job, so that's definitely not me. The consul, extraordinarily caring, social and popular people, always eager to help. I think I'm social and hopefully popular. I like to help. I don't know if I'm extraordinarily caring, social and popular, though. Explorers, the virtuoso, the bold and practical experimenter. I'm not that practical. I mean, I do DIY. I put up shelves in my room and stuff, but I'm not that hands-on, not that handy. The adventurer, flexible and charming artists, always ready to explore and experience something new. I kind of associate with that a bit. I feel like I'm kind of fairly flexible. I like to be able to do different things. I like to experience new things. Maybe. And the entrepreneur, smart, energetic, perceptive, enjoy living on the edge. I'm not sure I'm that kind of risk-taking, extreme sports entrepreneur type guy. And then the entertainer, spontaneous, energetic, and enthusiastic. I like to entertain, as a podcaster and as a stand-up comedian. Obviously, entertaining is a large part of what I do. So who knows, that could be me. All right, so those are the types. Now, interestingly, I don't know if you noticed this, but there are no negative categories. All the categories are positive. Now, surely there must be some negative personality traits in people, right? There must be. I mean, there are negative people. There are toxic people in the world. So why don't any negative traits come up in this evaluation? For example, there are no categories like these, and these are some categories that I've come up with myself. These are 7. Is it 7? I don't know. Here are 7 negative personality types which are not included in the MBTI test. So you've got couch potatoes. These are lazy time wasters who avoid all sense of responsibility or personal challenge by spending the day lying in bed, scrolling through TikTok and maybe ordering a pizza. So that's couch potatoes. Then you've got internet trolls. hate-filled nerds who use the anonymity and lack of accountability of the internet to provoke negative emotional responses from other users, probably because they have trouble establishing genuine loving relationships in the real world. Okay, also we have selfish scumbags. The type of person who would push your elderly grandmother out of the way while getting off a bus. These are completely self-interested psychopaths whose only motivations are to gain wealth, power, and influence over others, all for their own benefit. So that's selfish scumbags. Then you have scroungers. Never willing to pay their own way, scroungers are always looking for opportunities to get things for free or to benefit from the hard work of others, while making the least amount of effort possible and spending none of their own money. And then we have cowards. Cowards are weak-willed losers who run away from any challenge due to a fear of failure, which is actually caused by an underlying narcissistic tendency with an overriding sense of self-preservation combined with the feeling that they've been wronged somewhere down the line and therefore deserve to be given everything they want without taking any risk themselves. And we've got more. Finally, we have bullies. Bullies make themselves feel better by making other people feel worse. They belittle, abuse, and pick on people in weaker, lower status positions in order to cover up for a deep-seated sense of inadequacy, probably stemming from a problematic, loveless relationship with one or both of their parents, who probably bullied them too, sending them into a vicious cycle of abuse. So those are, I think it was about 7 categories of people you will not find in this test. There are other possible categories as well. For example, creepy weirdos, manipulative gaslighters, compulsive liars, sociopaths, and politicians. So we all know people like that. But interestingly, the test contains no descriptions like that, or in fact any negative descriptions whatsoever. Anyway, we're going to start the test in a moment. Just some more comments before I begin. Now, this will probably take a lot of time. In fact, it already is, because I think there are lots of sentences in this test, but that's fine, isn't it? Right? Taking time is fine. By the way, I'm very glad so many people agree with my thoughts from episode 871 about longer episodes. So longer episodes are fine. As I discuss these questions, right, which I'm going to start doing in a moment, you might think that I'm overanalyzing or thinking about each question too much, but I'm not. I'm going to answer the questions in the most honest way I can, but I also want to use my critical thinking to analyze the thinking or assumptions behind each one. Full disclosure, I am skeptical about this test, which you've probably picked up on. I'll discuss why I'm skeptical as we go through the questions. I don't know if the fact that I'm skeptical about the questions will affect the result, right? If I'm skeptical about the test, that, to be honest, that shouldn't affect the result. It shouldn't. If this is a good test, then it should be able to deal with those sorts of things, right? Believing in the test shouldn't affect the result. I mean, it might affect the way that I understand the results of it, the way that I interpret the results, but in terms of the way I answer the questions, as long as I'm genuinely, honestly answering them, I think it shouldn't have an effect on the results if this is a valid test. By the way, I did an A-level in psychology when I was 19 years old, and I got a B. I got a B in psychology at A-level. Check me out, yeah. So I'm vaguely familiar with some of the science behind this kind of thing. So I've got to mention test reliability and test validity. Talking of psychology and psychological concepts, here are 2 essential concepts in psychology and psychological testing. You have test reliability and test validity. Okay? So for a test like this to be objectively, measurably accurate, it should be both reliable and valid. These are standard concepts in scientific testing which any good test should comply with in order to produce results which we can reasonably accept to be accurate. So let's start with test reliability. Tests should be reliable, right? So test reliability refers to the consistency of a test. How the test consistently produces the same results each time. If the MBTI test is reliable, then it should produce the same results every time someone takes it. Because, as the makers claim, we have fixed personalities, right? We have certain personality types, so it should always put us in the same category each time, right? So every time you take it, you should get the same result, right? Regardless of, for example, your mood that day, or the weather, or whether you had a bad breakfast or something. Also, if a test is unaffected by measurement errors or random effects, like the person's mood, environmental factors, the weather on that particular day, if the test is unaffected by those things, it makes the test stronger and more reliable. So, reliability, the test should produce the same results every single time. And if it does so, that's important, because if it's getting different results each time, that suggests that maybe the test is not accurate. And the second thing, and this is in fact the most important thing, is test validity. Tests should be valid. This means that the test actually tests what it says it tests and nothing else. So the test does exactly what it says on the tin. Now this is different from reliability, because even if a test gets the same results each time, it might not be valid, meaning that the results still might not be accurate. So if the MBTI test is valid, it means that, for example, it's accurately labeling people. It's putting people in the right categories. For example, when it says that someone has a certain personality type and would be well suited for a particular job, that this is actually true, that the test is able to predict someone's performance in a certain way. Okay? Right, so having said all that stuff, let's now take the test. So here we go. So we now go onto the website of 16personalities.com again. It's so incredible to finally be understood, it says. In only 10 minutes, get a freakishly accurate description of who you are and why you do the things you do. Let's get started. So, little instructions before we begin. It says, be yourself and answer honestly to find out your personality type. Okay, I will do my best to be myself. Secondly, learn how your personality type influences many areas of your life, all right? And then grow into the person you want to be with your optional premium suite. I don't know how a psychological test which tells you who you are, and how does that then allow you to grow and change into someone else? I don't know. But interesting that they are presenting us with the option to go premium here. Anyway, right, so let's get started. The first statement is this. So there are statements, they're not questions actually, they're statements, and I have to agree or disagree. We've all done these sorts of tests before, like strongly agree, slightly agree, or neutral in the middle. So the first one, you regularly make new friends. You regularly make new friends. Well, this already I've got an issue with this, because this depends, doesn't it? I'm probably going to say that a lot, that it depends. But this, I feel, depends on which period of my life I'm in. These days, I have to say that I don't make that many new friends at the moment. It's not that regular now. But like a year ago, when my daughter joined a new school and we met loads of the parents from the school whose kids are in the same situation as them. A lot of the parents are from English-speaking countries. I made loads of new friends around this time last year, but since then I haven't really made that many friends. Also, when I moved to France the first time I moved to Paris, and I went out and started doing stand-up, I met loads of people. I met Amber and Paul, I met Sebastian, I met Sarah. I met all these different people, and I made a bunch of new friends at that time. Fred and, all these other people. But then, since then, I haven't really... So I don't know if I regularly make new friends. It depends on the time of my life, really. So I don't know. I don't know if I regularly make new friends. I have to just go neutral on that one. The next statement, you spend a lot of your free time exploring various topics that catch your interest. So my free time, when I'm not at work, like in the evening or something, I've got my computer or whatever, do I spend a lot of time exploring various topics that catch my interest? So, that's interesting. That's interesting. I think so. Quite a lot. Yes. I mean, I often find myself being trapped in a YouTube, like a YouTube hole, where I'm just on YouTube looking at the videos it suggests to me and my brain isn't really engaged fully. Or I'm reading books I like to read. Or I'm listening to podcasts about the Beatles or something. But I do like to explore new topics to an extent. I mean, I'm not constantly on the hunt for new subjects and new topics, but to an extent, yeah. So I'm going to agree a little bit. Seeing other people cry can easily make you feel like you want to cry too. Seeing other people cry can easily make you feel like you want to cry too. You kind of get a sense of what the question is attempting to measure here, right? You get the feeling that the test, with a question like this or a statement like this, is trying to work out how much empathy I have, how much I feel, right? How much I judge people by feelings, and how intuitive and emotion driven I am. It's quite transparent, really. And if I disagree with that, it's going to suggest that I'm more of a logical, sort of fact-driven person rather than an emotion-driven person, right? That's what it's trying to do here. But I think there's going to be other factors involved in my answering of this question. Like, the test here is assuming that I am the best judge of my own character, right? It's assuming that I am objectively going to be able to define myself. But I don't know if people really are that objective in defining themselves. Like, for example, people might say, yeah, I think I make friends quite regularly, but they might not actually. I mean, what does regularly even mean? I mean, there's no actual objective sense of what regularly means, right? I mean, how often is regularly? Once a year? Is that regularly? Every day? I mean, what does that even mean? There's no objective sense of what regularly means in that sense. And also, people might think, I think I make friends quite regularly, but they might be completely misguided and delusional about themselves. They might have no sense of who they are really, or what it is that's driving them. A lot of people don't know themselves that well. And what's interesting is that this test promises to tell you who you are, but really, in order to take the test effectively, you already need to know who you are. And actually, all the test is doing is telling you what you already think about yourself. Right? That's all it's doing. So you don't even need to take the test. You just need to sit and think about yourself. You already know who you are, if indeed you do. And if you're going into this test thinking that you don't know yourself, like, I don't really know, I wonder what kind of person I am really. Like, if you've got a sense that you don't really know yourself, then this test surely is not going to work, because the only thing the test is doing is asking you to evaluate yourself. And if you don't really know who you are, then this test is not going to be effective, surely. Anyway, seeing other people cry can easily make you feel like you want to cry too. A bit. I mean, to be honest, who is going to say no to that? Maybe some people would. Maybe some people are like, no, I do not cry. I am, maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger from the Terminator. It is a human emotion to cry. I am a T-1000 or whatever it is he is. Crying is a human response to having emotional feelings. Disagree. I think I agree with that a little bit. I mean, I'm not like every time I see someone cry, I'm like, yeah! Not every time, but a little bit, it can make me feel a bit like I want to have a little bit of a cry if I see someone else cry. If I see my children crying, then it's just like, oh my God, definitely. I'm going to go slightly agree. Okay, next. You often make a backup plan for a backup plan. Oh my God. You often make a backup plan for a backup plan. So let's say you make a plan, and then you make a backup plan in case that plan fails, and then you make another backup plan in case the backup plan fails. No, I never do that. I mean, what kind of person does that? Honestly, who does that? Who makes 3 plans? And for what? Anyway, a plan for what? Like for my English lessons, I'll have a plan and I'll have a few backup ideas, but I don't have another one. So for an English lesson, maybe. For a weekend, for dinner, I mean, no, disagree. Fairly strongly disagree. I think that's too much, too many backups. Just one backup plan is enough. You usually stay calm even under a lot of pressure. That's hard to say, isn't it, really? I think, to be honest, when I'm under quite a lot of pressure, I do manage to stay calm. But what does quite a lot of pressure mean? Maybe the pressure I've experienced is just not really any pressure. Like, the worst kind of pressure I get is 5 minutes before an English lesson and the photocopier is not working. I might swear. I might start swearing a lot and get frustrated, but generally speaking, I think I stay fairly calm in that situation. I would agree. Yeah, I agree. You usually wait for others to introduce themselves first at social gatherings. So I'm at a party, I've got my drink. What shall I do? Shall I just wait for other people to introduce themselves? Or shall I go in and say, "Hi, I'm Luke"? I don't really do that. I think, if anything, I probably take the initiative in that situation a bit more. So I disagree a bit. Okay, we're 10% through. Let's keep going. So you're often told by others that you are very reliable. Luke, you know what, Luke? You know what? You're very reliable. Did you know that? It's funny you should say that. Someone said that to me just yesterday. In fact, people constantly tell me that I'm very reliable. I don't know how often do people talk about your reliability? I mean, not really. I'm not often told by others that I'm reliable, but by the same token, it's very rare that people say that I'm unreliable too. So I don't quite know how to answer that. My wife tells me I'm reliable, but she means in an emotional sense that I'm always there for her. So others, though, not just one, but others. Nah, I'm going to go in the middle. I don't know how to answer that. You're very sentimental. I'm not that sentimental. If you're sentimental, it means you feel you're prone to feeling sadness. You're prone to feeling nostalgia. For example, if you're very sentimental, if you see an old picture, for example, a picture of you and your friends from 20 years ago, that you might oh wow, you remember that? Oh, and you might spend a lot of time thinking about the old days or feeling very emotional about the past. Or maybe if you watch Forrest Gump, that you cry a lot when little Forrest Gump runs along and learns how to run really fast. Oh, you start to cry. A bit. I do sometimes think about my past and feel a bit emotional. I can feel a bit sort of moved by films, but not too much. I think I'm in the middle again. You like to use organising tools like schedules and lists. I'm not sure I like using schedules and lists. Schedules in British English, schedules in American English. I don't know if I like using schedules and lists, but I use them because I have to, because they're useful. I don't really like using them, but I don't dislike using them. I'm not like, oh, another bloody list. Oh, go, okay then. It's not like I dislike it, but I'm not also thinking, oh, great, I get to do another list. Fantastic. I think I'm in the middle. What happens if you just go in the middle for all of these? It's going to say you are just no one. You don't have a personality. Even a small mistake can cause you to doubt your overall abilities and knowledge. For example, if I'm in an English lesson and I make one mistake, if I make a single mistake, like a spelling mistake on the board, if I spell necessary, N-E-C-C, if I spell it with 2 C's instead of 1 C, and then I realise, do I then go, oh God, I'm a terrible teacher, I've got no idea what I'm doing, oh God. Does it make me doubt my overall abilities and knowledge? Oh my God, I know nothing, I'm a terrible teacher, oh shit. No. That's not true. I disagree. But, if I make some mistakes, it can cause me to doubt my abilities, but not that much. So I'm going to disagree. You feel comfortable just walking up to someone you find interesting and striking up a conversation. I'm not sure I feel comfortable doing that. there's a certain amount of awkwardness that comes into that. For example, I know one of the parents at school, and he's very interesting. I'd like to get him onto this podcast, actually. He's a very interesting guy. He's quite an exuberant person. He's quite visually striking. And I have gone up to him and talked to him and suggested that he come on the podcast. But I had to kind of I had to build myself up to it. It was a bit embarrassing. So I don't know if I feel completely comfortable just walking up to someone. To an extent, I agree. Yeah. Not that much, though. You're not too interested in discussions about various interpretations of creative works. Now, I strongly disagree with that because I'm really interested in discussions about, for example, films, interpretations of films and books and things. So I strongly disagree with that. That's one of my favourite things to do, in fact. Okay, let's move on. 20% through. You find it challenging to relate to people who are primarily guided by their emotions. You what? You find it challenging to relate to people who are primarily guided by their emotions. How do I know if someone is primarily guided by their emotions? How do I know that? So if you've got someone who's like, what I really felt about this was that I felt very sad about it. I was very moved by this. And this really filled me with joy, Luke. Do I find that challenging? Like, oh, God, do I really have to speak to her? Oh, God, the way she's driven by her emotions is just so annoying. Not really. I think I'm fine talking to people who are guided by their emotions. But I think it's fine. I disagree with that. You usually prefer just doing what you feel like at any given moment instead of planning a particular daily routine. Oh God, I think it's a bit of both. Honestly, it's a bit of both. I like to prepare myself. I like to plan my day in advance. For example, if I'm walking to my podcastle, I'll think about what I'm going to do what I'm going to do that day. Or if I'm at various moments, I will kind of make a vague plan of what I'm going to do. But then at the same time, I'm quite willing to throw that plan out of the window, not literally, because that could fall on someone's head and could hurt them. I mean, have you ever had a plan fall on your head? It's not fun, let me tell you. People are constantly going to a hospital, like, what's the matter? Terrible cranial injury. Why? A plan fell on his head because someone threw it out the window. Will people stop throwing plans out the window? So I prefer doing just what I feel like. I do like to do what I feel like doing, but at the same time, I also like to prepare myself a bit. I like to sort of do both. I'm going to go in the middle. You rarely worry about whether you make a good impression on people you meet. So basically, this means I never really worry about making a good impression. For example, so I met some people. I wonder what they thought of me. Oh, who cares? Right? Or I'm going to meet some new people tomorrow. Oh, I wonder what they're going to think of me. You know what? Don't care. No, that's not me. I do worry, like, oh, God, I wonder what they thought of me. If I'm going to teach a class, if I've got a new class of students on Monday morning, yeah, I might worry about making a good impression on them. Again, it depends on the situation, doesn't it? In a professional context, yeah, I'm going to worry about it. If I've got a job interview, yeah, I'm definitely going to worry about whether I'm making a good impression. If I'm just meeting some of my brother's friends in the pub, I'm not going to worry about it so much. Rarely worry about my good impression. I worry about it a bit. I worry about it a reasonable amount. So I think it's probably normal to worry about things a little bit, isn't it? Here's another thing, though, that I think when I'm doing this test, which is that, again, going back to that idea that people might not be the most objective judge of themselves, I think people might respond to these questions not in the most truthful way, but they might even subconsciously respond to the questions in the most positive way. Like, for example, who is going to, I don't know, in some of the sentences, there's definitely a sense that one of the responses is a bit more negative than another one. Like maybe people are going to be trying to promote themselves in a way, they project themselves in a slightly more positive way than they actually are, or at least they perceive one direction to be a bit more positive than the other, and so they tend to push themselves in that direction a little bit. Like maybe people are unwilling to assess themselves in a way that they think is negative, or they might be unwilling to assess themselves in a way that other people will think is negative. For example, if they're doing this in a work environment and they know that their human resources manager is going to read the results, maybe they're going to present themselves in a way that they think their boss or their company will appreciate, you know? So you rarely worry about whether you make a good impression on people you meet. I think a lot of people would disagree with that, and they would say, no, I think it's important to think about the impression you're giving. Honestly, in my heart of hearts, I think I do worry about that a little bit. I think it's important to make a good impression on people. So I'm going to disagree with that a bit. You enjoy participating in team-based activities. Yes, to an extent. In those kind of team building activities you do at work, they're quite good fun. But you know what? I think I enjoy team-based activities when there isn't a really big important outcome. If it's just a bit of fun, then definitely. But if it's in order to produce really important work, a lot of the time I'd prefer to work on my own, to be honest. So if it's kind of like fairly trivial stuff, then I'm really happy to work in a team, and I like to have fun with the team members. But if it's more serious, then I tend to prefer to work on my own because I can probably get a bit more control over the outcome of the work that we're doing. So I don't know, I'm right in the middle. You see yourself as more of a visionary than a realist. No, I see myself as a realist. I think I'm more of a realist. I think I tend to see the world as it really is, rather than projecting some idealized vision on the world. So I disagree with that. Helping others succeed brings you more happiness than your own achievements. Helping other people succeed brings you more happiness than your own achievements. Now that's a statement that is confusing for an English language teacher to respond to, because my own achievements in my work are to help other people succeed. Right? If I help other people succeed, that is an achievement for me. You see what I mean? So it's the same thing. Helping other people and achieving something are exactly the same thing. Helping others succeed brings you more happiness than your own achievements. It's very satisfying when I know that I've helped other people improve their English, that my work has helped them succeed. That's extremely satisfying. But my own achievements are, I suppose, podcasting stuff, getting a certain number of subscribers. I don't know, really. It's a bit of both. I'm going to go in the middle again. How boring of me. Moving on. So we're a third of the way through. I'm going to try and do this fairly quickly now. You often find beauty in chaos. You what? What? You often find beauty in chaos. Chaos means a situation that's totally disorganized, right? Like a big storm where wind is flying in all different directions and everything's falling all over the place. Right? Chaos, where there's no order at all. I don't find beauty in chaos. I find chaos to be stressful. Like, for example, if you work at a school and the director of studies, the academic manager, is a total disaster and it's really disorganized and no one knows what they're doing or what's happening or where the books are or how many students have I got in my class or what's going on. This is total chaos. I don't think, oh God, it's chaotic, isn't it? Oh, but isn't it beautiful? Just look at the madness. No, I don't. I disagree with that. But at the same time, I don't like order. There must be order. Everything must be categorized and ordered. No, everything has to be a straight line. Not exactly. So I just disagree, not strongly disagree. You're prone to worrying that things will take a turn for the worse. You're prone to something. If you're prone to something, it means this tends to happen to you. And it's normally a negative thing. You're prone to worrying about things. You're prone to having headaches, right? You're prone to being a bit depressed. This means that this is something that tends to happen to you, something negative. You're prone to worrying that things will take a turn for the worse. I don't know if I worry that things will take a turn for the worse. I think I sort of know that things will take a turn for the worse, right? I mean, you think about the environment and the climate, but also you think about your life. I mean, let's be honest. Everyone knows that eventually you're going to die, right? And before you die, sorry to get all depressing, everyone, but everyone's going to die. And probably before you die, you'll probably get sick, or at least you'll get old and weak. And if you don't die when you're old and weak, that means you're going to die before your time, which means you might have an accident or some horrible illness. And, to be frank, it's probably going to get worse before the end. I don't know anyone whose lives just get better and better and better and then off they go. That's not the way it works. So I don't worry that things will take a turn for the worse. I sort of know that they will. So does that mean I'm worrying about it, or just that I know it? That I know it? I suppose I probably do worry about that a bit. Like I worry about the climate. I think what's going to happen? What temperature will it be in July in 10 to 15 years' time? I mean, really, what is going to happen to us and our way of life? Yeah, I worry about those things, but I think it's just that I know them rather than just like worry about them or come up with them out of nowhere. Okay. You need time to recharge after being around people. This is a good one. And obviously this refers to being introverted or extroverted, right? I think a lot of my listeners, like Jackie, assume that I'm an extrovert because of the way that I am on the podcast and the way I do comedy and stuff like that on stage in front of people. But actually, I don't know if I am, funnily enough. And I've talked about this before, but I think the definition of an introvert or an extrovert, one of the definitions is that extroverts get their energy from being with other people, and introverts get their energy from time they spend alone. And I definitely identify with the second definition there, that I do when I'm with other people, it's good, but it does exhaust me. Spending time with others does drain my energy, and I need time to recharge, which is why I do like to spend time on my own. It helps me to recharge my batteries. So I do need time to recharge after being around people. I strongly agree with that. You do not consider yourself an artistic type. No, I do consider myself an artistic type, actually. I know that seems a bit pretentious, but I sort of feel a bit artistic. I do music and stuff, and sometimes the way that I do the podcast, I sort of see it more like an artistic endeavour rather than a sort of a business thing. So I don't consider myself an artistic. I disagree with that. When making decisions, you focus more on logic than how others might feel about your actions. What? When making decisions, you focus more on logic than how others might feel about your actions. How is other people's feelings nothing to do with logic? I mean, how is that? How are those things exclusive to each other? Surely it's quite logical to incorporate people's feelings in your actions. For example, if I smash this person on the head and take all their money, or I don't know what. Like, for example, if I play my mobile phone really loud in the evening while my wife and I are sitting on the sofa, she'll get upset with me, so I shouldn't do it. Because, I mean, that's just logic. That's plain logic. If I do X, Y will happen, and therefore it will be bad. So don't do X. I mean, that's just logic, basic logic, and it also incorporates how other people might feel. I don't understand the question. I'm going to go neutral. You prefer to do your chores before allowing yourself to relax. Prefer to do your chores, things like housework, doing the washing up, tidying up, clearing up, just the household chores. You prefer to do your chores before allowing yourself to relax. I agree with that a bit. I do find that in the evening, cook dinner, get the kids ready for bed, put the kids in bed, they're asleep, then I will clean up the kitchen before I sit down. So I think I agree with that. Next, you find solving problems more important than avoiding hurt feelings. Again, I don't understand this, because a problem could be someone's hurt feelings. In fact, often that is the biggest problem. You find solving problems more important than avoiding hurt feelings. What kind of problem? Like, for example, I'm gonna fix this window even if it makes my daughter really upset, because I'm going to fix it at 9 p.m. when she's trying to sleep, and I'm going bang, 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 bang. It's like, and my daughter's like, "Can you stop doing that? I'm trying to sleep." And it's like, "Well, I'm trying to solve a problem here. I don't care about your feelings." I don't understand that. Neutral. You tend to avoid drawing attention to yourself. Well, no, not well. I don't know. To draw attention to yourself is to get people's attention. So if you like drawing attention to yourself, you're the sort of person who dresses very loudly, does things that obviously make people want to look at you, like you perform in the street or something and people are like, "Wow, look at him." Or you wear very bright clothing or something like that to make everyone look at you, to draw attention to yourself. You tend to avoid drawing attention to yourself. Well, you might think this is not true, because here I am on YouTube and on a podcast and then on stage in the evening getting people's attention. That's right. And that is definitely true. So obviously I do, to an extent, seek people's attention. But then in other situations, like when I'm just walking down the street in my normal life, I don't want to draw attention to myself. When I go to a restaurant or a cafe for lunch, I like to sit at the table in anonymity. I don't want everyone's attention. I'm quite happy to just sit there completely anonymous, reading a book. It's nice, in fact, to be in public. I like the anonymity of a public place, like when you're in a cafe and there's other people around you and you're just one of those people. You're not standing out. You're not trying to get everyone's attention. You're just in this anonymous public space, and that's wonderful. I love that feeling. And sometimes I like working in public places and just being anonymous. So in those situations, I definitely avoid drawing attention to myself. But then in other situations, I really try to get people's attention. For example, I'm designing YouTube thumbnails that will hopefully attract your attention. So, I do both of those things. I'm going in the middle. Your mood can change very quickly. Yes, it can. For example, if I'm happily hammering a nail in the wall, if I'm going, "Oh, I got my YouTube shiny thing, I'm going to hammer a nail in the wall and hang it up on the wall. Isn't this wonderful?" And then whack, I hit my thumb with the hammer. My mood changed very quickly, right? Is that what they mean? Because that's true. Definitely my mood can change very quickly. It's unlikely that I would be hammering the nail in and then whack my thumb and go, "Oh, I've whacked my thumb with a hammer, but I'm in such a good mood that I'm just going to wait a couple of minutes before I get really angry about that. Just hold on. Yep, here it comes." See, my mood doesn't change very quickly. It takes time for the mood to change. I think I get what they mean, that you can be sort of in a good mood one moment and then suddenly you're angry. I think I'm probably a bit more stable than that. I don't tend to shift from one mood to the other fairly quickly, but who knows? You'd probably have to ask my wife. That would be interesting, actually, to get my wife to take this test for me and see if her perception of me is different from my perception of myself. Anyway, your mood can change very quickly. No, I'm fairly stable. I'm going to disagree with that slightly. In a conflict, you prioritize objective solutions over personal needs or emotions. Again, this is another one of those questions that actually doesn't make sense when you think about it. In a conflict, you prioritize objective solutions over personal needs or emotions. So what kind of conflict are we talking about? Let's say my daughter and my son are having an argument because they both want to play with the same toy. Okay? Now, if you want, you could think of this in adult terms. For example, you could have adults who are upset with each other because they both want, what would it be? The last biscuit. Let's go for that. Although the biscuit could be anything, it could be the contract. Two parties are upset because there's only one contract, and I'm offering the contract to one party, but the other party's all upset because they feel like they should have been given the contract. So, oh God, everyone's upset and everyone's angry. And so what do? Prioritize objective solutions over personal needs or emotions. But what if the problem, if the heart of the conflict is the fact that people's personal needs and emotions have been upset? In that sense, the objective solution is to find a way to make sure everyone's personal needs and emotions are dealt with. So those things, objective solutions and personal needs or emotions, are not mutually exclusive at all. In fact, often they are exactly the same thing, that an objective solution will solve personal needs and emotional problems. Sorry, I'm going to go in the middle again. You often end up doing things at the last possible moment. Well, yeah, of course. Who doesn't? Who doesn't do that? I would agree with that. Not strongly, because I don't do it all the time, but yeah, of course. Especially at work, I get to work, and the time, I will always use every single second of time that I have in preparing my lesson, but I'm not going to arrive at work 2 hours in advance because, I'm not being paid for that time. So I go in with 40 minutes or something, and every second is used, preparing, photocopying, preparing student lists, doing this, that, and the other, right? And often it'll be right up until the moment when the class starts. So yeah, I do end up doing things at the last possible moment, just like most people, I think. You've always been fascinated by the question of what, if anything, happens after death. Yeah, I agree with that. Right? Wouldn't everyone agree with that? What kind of person is just like, hey, do you ever think about, bit morbid this, sorry, but do you ever think about like what happens after we die? It's like, after we die? Nah, I couldn't. Who cares? Not interested, really. No, I don't know. Maybe what they're thinking with this is that the people who are not fascinated by what happens after we die, those people just live in the moment. They're just free spirits who live in the moment. I don't care about what happens after I die. I just want to live every day as if it's my last day. Maybe, but yeah, of course I'm fascinated by what happens after we die. That's obviously fascinating, isn't it? I wonder how very religious people would feel about this question, because very religious people would be like, well, I know what's going to happen now. I'm going to go to heaven as well. I'm going to go to heaven, or maybe hell, hopefully heaven, right? But that also is fascinating, isn't it? Like, are you going to go to heaven or hell? Are you sure? Are you sure you're going to go to heaven? I don't know. I think I'm interested by that. Of course. Next. You usually prefer to be around others rather than on your own. You prefer to be around others rather than on your own. This is that extrovert-introvert thing again. I don't know. I quite like being on my own, but not all the time. Sometimes I get lonely. And then I crave the attention of others, the company of others. You usually prefer to be around others than on your own. It's 50-50, maybe a little bit more, maybe. Yeah. You become bored or lose interest when the discussion gets highly theoretical. It's a difficult one to answer, isn't it, that? When a discussion gets highly theoretical, what does that mean? So if you're discussing, what are we discussing? What would we be discussing? Like, Cadbury's have brought out some new biscuits. Really? What ones? They're orange chocolate digestives. Chocolate digestives with orange flavour. That's good, isn't it? Oh yeah, should we get some? Yeah, I think we should get some. What's your favourite kind of biscuit? I don't know. I suppose I like the dark chocolate digestives. And I don't know, when would this conversation get theoretical? What about the idea of I don't know what, vegan biscuits. Have you thought about, well, they don't exist. So I suppose that in theory, vegan biscuits could be good, but as long as the flavour is retained and they don't use any kind of animal fats or any other derived products like milk or anything. Sorry, this conversation's got too boring. As soon as it got theoretical, I'm out. I don't. You become bored or lose interest when the discussion gets highly theoretical. No, I don't. I'm quite happy having theoretical discussions. You find it easy to empathise with a person whose experiences are very different from yours. I can empathise with a person whose experiences are very different from yours. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think I do. For example, there's a YouTube channel called, is it called Soft White Underbelly? Soft White Underbelly, I think it is. And it's a series of fascinating interviews with homeless people and alcoholic people and people addicted to substances in America, in Los Angeles. There's an interviewer. He takes people from Skid Row, these people who are just in terrible situations, living on the street, and he puts them in front of a really good camera with a nice background, and he interviews them about their life and lets them talk about their life. It's absolutely fascinating. And some of those stories that those people have told are absolutely heartbreaking. And of course, you empathise with them when they talk about the abuse that they suffered and how that caused them to, adopt lifestyles which are very damaging, and how they can't escape from this addictive behaviour because they've got core problems with their personal life. Of course, you empathise with them. You kind of feel what they feel as they tell you about their story. But these people have got very different experiences to mine. I've never lived on the street, so I find it easy to empathise with a person. Yeah, I agree with that. You usually postpone finalising decisions for as long as possible. Meaning I try to leave a decision until the last possible moment. No, not really. I don't like to do that. I try to make a decision. I like to get to a decision. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes it's difficult. Usually postpone finalising decision so I put decisions off for as long as possible. I'm neither nor. I'm in the middle. You rarely second guess the choices that you've made. To second guess something is basically to kind of think about something again, right? So you make a decision, and then afterwards you're like, wait a minute, was that the right decision? Should I have done that? Maybe I should have done it differently. You can also second guess someone. That's where someone has done something, made a decision, and you kind of think about you kind of think about that decision again after they've already done it. That's second guessing someone, or it's second guessing a choice that you've made. You rarely second guess the choices you've made. No, I think I'm fairly reflective, and I often will think again about decisions or choices. I often look back and think about things. You rarely second guess the choices that you've made. Not true. After a long and exhausting week, a lively social event is just what you need. There's another question about being introverted or extroverted. It depends on the social event, doesn't it? Sometimes if it's a party with all my best friends, then that is often just what I need. But if it's a long and exhausting week, to be fair, I think some time on my own, just to relax, is what I like. So I think I disagree with that. You enjoy going to art museums? Yes, I do. Yeah, I'm not one of these people who's like, it's a load of old pretentious nonsense, isn't it, art? It's just a big scam, the whole art industry. Not really. I quite like going around, drinking a nice coffee and looking at some pictures and kind of going, wow, what's all this about then? And if it's old pictures, marvelling at the artistry and the history. If it's new contemporary art, just being open-minded and having a good look at the work, not just judging it based on how difficult it was, or a child could have done that. That's not the point. It's more about what feelings it evokes or what kind of imagery it evokes. I love going to art museums. Agree. You often have a hard time understanding others' feelings. I don't think so. I think I'm fairly good at understanding how other people feel. So disagree. You like to have a to-do list for each day. So a to-do list is a list of things to do, right? So I'm going to do this. Here are my things to do. I do like to have a to-do list for each day, yes. I don't always have one, but when it's necessary, yes. So yeah, I like having a to-do list. You rarely feel insecure. Insecure is where you feel, you feel anxious. You don't feel totally secure. You don't feel totally safe, normally in an emotional way. If you feel insecure, I used to feel a lot more insecure than I do now. These days, I'm a bit more sure of myself. I'm in a bit more of an emotionally safe and strong situation with a family, I'm married and stuff like that. There were times in my past where I felt insecure, like I didn't feel like I was emotionally grounded or that I was emotionally safe. I felt unconfident and a bit unhappy. But these days, I'm okay. So what does that mean? That mean I've changed? If we have a universal personality type, then surely I would always feel the same all the way through my life. But I think we change, don't we, as our lives change? I don't know how to answer that. I'm going in the middle. You prefer texting or emailing to calling or meeting in person. I am more of a texter than a caller. If someone calls me on my phone, if I look at my phone and someone's calling, I often will kind of go, someone's calling me. That is my first reaction quite a lot. I prefer to use text messages. So I think I agree with that. You enjoy debating ethical dilemmas. Oh God, I'm not sure I do really enjoy debating ethical situations. I mean, I know that ethics are important, but to be honest, it's one of my least favourite topics to debate. I like debating things, but ethical dilemmas, sometimes it's just very unsatisfying to debate those things. Like, for example, you've got this situation. There's a train coming down the train tracks, and you've got the lever to control the junction, and the train can go either one way or the other, depending on how you pull the lever. If you pull it to the right, the train will crash into a group of people. But if you pull it to the left, the train will crash into like a member of your family. Which way do you make the train go? That sort of ethical dilemma is horrible. Or when you've got so there's 10 children and they could be killed by the train, or you kill this scientist who's going to develop a vaccine for malaria. Which one do you do? Oh God, I can't stand debating things like that, because obviously it all depends on how you define ethics. One person dying versus a group of people dying, or the potential for what this one person versus the potential. No, I don't really enjoy debating ethical dilemmas. I'm going to strongly disagree with that. You're excited by the prospect of exploring new social environments and dynamics. What? Excited by the prospect of exploring new social environments and dynamics. I suppose this means, if I move to a different country, there'll be all these different social environments, different people to meet in different situations, different kinds of, I don't know, that sounds a bit exhausting. I mean, it can be exciting. These days, ask me that 20 years ago and I would have agreed with it a lot more. These days, I'm a little bit less enthusiastic about that sort of thing. Maybe I'm getting older. Excited by the prospect of exploring new. It's fairly exciting, but also sounds fairly horrible, doesn't it? I'm going to go in the middle. If your plans are interrupted, your top priority is to get back on track as soon as possible. If my plans are interrupted, my top priority is to get back on track as soon as possible. It's difficult to answer. Depends on the plans, doesn't it? So, for example, if I've got a plan to go to the cinema, I'm going to go to the cinema, right? So tonight I'm going to the cinema and I'm walking to the cinema. I'm going to watch the new Quentin Tarantino film. Fantastic. And then I bump into an old friend I haven't seen for ages. And he says, "Hey, Luke, I haven't seen you for ages. How are you? Let's go for a drink." is my top priority to just go back to my original plan? Like, it's great to see you. Haven't seen you for 20 years. I might never see you again, but I'm sorry. I've already got a plan in place. I'm going to go and see the Quentin Tarantino film. So sorry. Goodbye. No. If I'm teaching an English lesson, I've got a plan. Like today, we're going to do second conditional structures and discussing the past, or discussing the present, if it's second conditional. Discussing the present and the future with second conditionals. That's what we're going to do in this lesson. And then my students all together, they all say, you know what? We've done too much grammar recently. Can we have a discussion about the Olympics in Paris? Would I say, no, I'm sorry, my top priority is to just get back on track as soon as possible? No, I wouldn't. So it looks like I disagree with this. Yeah. You're still bothered by mistakes you made a long time ago. Yeah. Yeah, I think, isn't everyone, or is it just me? Maybe a lot of people are like, never look back at the past. Just move forwards all the time and just keep making the same mistakes again and again and again. No, I do often find myself looking back at failing my A-levels or doing this or that. So I agree with that. You prefer not to take risks even when they might lead to new experiences. I don't know. I think again, it depends on the time of life, but I tend to disagree with this. Like a couple of times I've done a bungee jump, that's where you jump off a bridge with a rope attached. And then you swing at the bottom or bounce I've done those a couple of times. They were good fun. And I did them precisely because they were new experiences. I'd love to do a skydive. What other kinds of risks are we talking about, though? Just going off to a new place without really planning? What kind of risks do we mean? Like doing a new type of podcast episode I've never done before. Ooh. It might not work. What will people think? I don't know. I've got to go in the middle. Your emotions control you more than you control them. Who knows? Sometimes my emotions control me. For example, if I'm feeling enthusiastic about something, or if I feel happy about something, if I feel sad, if I feel very depressed, I might take the day off because I just can't work today. Don't feel depressed. I feel a bit too depressed. Depressed? I feel a bit too depressed. I can't speak. Sometimes I do that. If I'm feeling a bit depressed for whatever reason, I don't have the enthusiasm, I will take the day off. Does that mean my emotions are controlling me? Or is that me making the decision because of... impossible to answer that. You take great care not to embarrass others, even when it's their fault. A bit. I mean, as an English person, I fit that stereotype fairly well, where someone steps on my foot, I say sorry. Right? If someone does something, I will say sorry because I don't want everyone to feel bad. So, but I don't know if I take great care not to embarrass others. For example, if someone crashed into my car and completely destroyed it, so I had to buy a new one, I think I would probably, in that situation, I would say, look, I'm sorry, that was your fault. I want your insurance details. If I got poisoned at a restaurant and it was clearly the fault of the chef who prepared the food wrong, I think I would probably, ask for compensation or whatever. I wouldn't be like, you know what, I nearly died from gastric disease, whatever that is. But, don't worry about it. No, it was okay. It's all your fault. No, you're a great chef. No, everything's fine. No, I disagree. But then again, I do like to take other people's feelings into account, and I don't want people to feel embarrassed or awkward. So often I will, for example, say sorry, even if it wasn't really my fault, just because I don't want everything to be a problem. So it's a bit of both, 50-50. I'm going in the middle. We've got 80% done. We've got 20% left. Your personal work style is closer to spontaneous bursts of energy than organised and consistent efforts. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm going to have to go 50-50 on this one because often I'll be doing organised and consistent work where it's like, for example, preparing for premium episodes where it's like, organized work. I'm creating word lists and then kind of finding example sentences and thinking of clever ways to explain things, or think of different examples, different ways I can do it. So that's fairly organized and consistent work. But then sometimes you get like a flash of inspiration, and that's suddenly like, whoa, and I open up a new Google document and bam, start writing out some other thing because I just get an idea that could be another episode. So it's really a mix of both. I think my personal work style is to do both of those things. I mean, no one is just doing spontaneous bursts of energy only, or just organized and consistent things, are they? Certainly for me, I mean, in a fairly creative job, you have both. I'm going in the middle. Another boring response. When someone thinks highly of you, for example, when someone thinks I'm great, you wonder how long it will take for them to feel disappointed in you. A bit. So if I find out that someone thinks I'm fantastic, yeah, there's a little bit inside me that's kind of like, all right. Yeah, there's a realistic feeling in there, which is like, well, maybe when they get to know me, they won't think I'm that fantastic. Who knows? Even my wife, I'm still convinced that any day now, she's just going to realize, wait a minute, you're rubbish. Why am I with you? There's still that feeling that one day she will kind of realize. So, yeah, I agree with that to an extent. You would love a job that requires you to work alone most of the time. Yeah, I got to agree with that, because obviously I love the job I do, and I do work alone a lot of the time. Even though I'm sort of working with a lot of people, I do have guests sometimes. As a teacher, I'm in front of students in class, but the work that I really love is to do stuff like this, and a lot of the time this involves working alone, so I'm going to have to agree with that. You believe that pondering abstract philosophical questions is a waste of time. No, I love pondering abstract philosophical questions. It's one of my favourite things to do. So disagree. Engaging with new people invigorates you, sparking your curiosity and enthusiasm. To an extent. Engaging with new people, meeting new people and talking to them. This invigorates me, sparking my curiosity and enthusiasm. I think when I have interesting guests on this podcast, I think that's fairly invigorating. And what happens often is that I'll spend a lot of time making episodes on my own for a while, like I do solo episodes for a while, and then I'll have a guest, and it's like really refreshing and sort of nice, pleasant and refreshing to have a new person to talk to, but not all the time. A lot of the time I'll have guests and then I'll think, I can't wait to get back to doing solo stuff again. And I just sort of like feel like, no, I just want to work on my own for a bit. I'm going to go in the middle. You believe that showing empathy during disagreements leads to better resolutions. Yeah, I think it's probably true. So if I'm having an argument with someone, I will probably often show that I understand how they feel. Sometimes it doesn't help me win the argument, but I can't help it. I agree. Okay, I think it's the last section, surely. You often feel overwhelmed. If you feel overwhelmed, you feel like everything's too much. Too much stuff, too many things to think about. Like your mental load is too much. You feel overwhelmed. Too much. Oh God, no. I want everyone to just stop, just go away. This is too much. Depends on the situation, I suppose. But yeah, I can feel overwhelmed. Like at the end of the day, and I think, oh my God, I've got to do all this shopping, I've got to prepare dinner, I've got to do this, that, and the other, I've got to make sure, my daughter's got this homework to do, I've got to that, fairly often, but not that much. I mean, I'm quite lucky, really. I'm not often completely overwhelmed, so only a bit. You feel a strong sense of duty and responsibility in all your commitments. Bloody hell. A strong sense of duty and responsibility in all my commitments. A bit, yeah. You're very intrigued by things labelled as controversial. So if you're intrigued by something, it means you're interested by it and curious in it. So, that's interesting. It's very controversial. Look, Ricky Gervais made some jokes that upset everyone. How fascinating. Let me find out more. I'm quite intrigued by that, but at the same time, I'm also sort of bored by it as well. So I could read that newspaper headline or internet headline, Ricky Gervais makes controversial jokes and everyone's upset. I might be like, oh, that's interesting. Or equally, I might read that, Ricky Gervais makes some more offensive jokes and everyone's upset. And I might go, oh God, not again. Boring. Can we just have something else, please? I'm going to have to go in the middle. Not that bothered by controversy, really. You're willing to give up a good opportunity if you believe someone else needs it more. Again, this is one of those questions where you think a lot of people are going to agree with this, right? Because it makes them look good. It's like, no, I'm a completely selfish person. I disagree. You're willing to give up a good opportunity if you believe someone else needs it more. Oh, God. For example, right? For example, if I had the opportunity to interview Sir Paul McCartney on this podcast, and then there's like some guy from the Paul McCartney podcast who doesn't have that many listeners or viewers, and as a result, he doesn't really earn a lot of money from his podcast, and he's just had a baby, and he would really need to interview Paul on his podcast, but the opportunities come to me. Would I say, you know what? Never mind. Give it to the Paul McCartney podcast instead, because he needs it more. I don't think I would, or would I? I mean, if if the guy was like, look, my poor child is starving. If I don't interview Paul McCartney, then I might, I don't think that situation is likely to happen. But if the Paul McCartney guy is like, oh God, I really needed that. My podcast really needed that. I might have to say, well, I'm terribly sorry, but I wasn't going to give up that opportunity. I've been hoping to interview Paul McCartney for years, decades. So I'm sorry. I know that you really need that. And relatively speaking, my podcast is already fairly successful. This is just an opportunity I could not give up. So in that case, no. But it depends, doesn't it? I'm going to disagree a little bit selfish, but there you go. You struggle with deadlines. Well, when I was a student at university, yes, I was terrible at meeting deadlines and I did everything at the last minute. These days, less so, because I've got my shit together a bit more than I did then. So I'm a bit better with that. But also, I've just got to a position where I'm able to manage my time more effectively. So it's a bit of both, who is the real Luke? Is it someone who struggles with deadlines or not? I don't know. It's both, because the old Luke was terrible with deadlines. The new Luke is reasonably okay with deadlines. Maybe the future Luke will be back to being terrible again. Who knows? I think it's 50-50. You feel confident that things will work out for you. Well, like I said earlier, I know that things are ultimately not really going to work out because I'll probably get sick, I'll suffer, and then I'll die. Yay! But at the same time, I have kind of got this inbuilt sense of optimism where I feel like everything's going to be kind of all right, even though, there's obviously the end of your life and everything, but you can't spend your time thinking about that all the time. That's just inevitable, isn't it? But then in a more short-term way, I do have a sort of weird feeling that it'll be okay. So I kind of feel that I agree with that a bit. I think that's the last one. Now they're asking for my gender. It says this is optional. This will determine your avatar in the results screen. So I'm going to select male. That's how I identify. Okay, folks, let's see the results. What is going to happen? Will I be... What was the thing that Jackie thought I was? What did she think I was? She thought I was the ENFJ, the protagonist, right? But let's see the results. Here we go. Drum roll. Ding. I am an INFP mediator, apparently. So, mediators are poetic, kind, and altruistic people, always eager to help a good cause. That's sort of a surprise. That's kind of a surprise. apparently I'm introverted. Feeling and perceptive? I can't remember. Let's see. Let's move on. So I'm 62% introverted. 54% intuitive rather than observant. This means that intuitive individuals are very imaginative, open-minded and curious. They value originality and focus on hidden meanings and distant possibilities. But it's interesting that I'm classified as intuitive, but in fact I'm quite close to being observant. It's almost 50-50, 54 to 46%. It's like Brexit. So I'm not sure that counts really. But it says that I'm intuitive. That's the category I'm in, even though I could easily be observant if I just maybe answered a couple of those questions differently. Then apparently I'm 60% feeling rather than 40% thinking. Feeling individuals value emotional expression and sensitivity. They place a lot of importance on empathy, social harmony and cooperation. I kind of agree with that. And then in terms of tactics, I'm almost completely in the middle between prospecting and judging. Prospecting individuals are very good at improvising and adapting to opportunities. They tend to be flexible, non-conformists who value novelty above stability. Sounds very positive. In terms of identity, again, I'm right in the middle between turbulent and assertive. Apparently, turbulent individuals are self-conscious, meaning aware of themselves, and sensitive to stress. They feel a sense of urgency in their emotions and tend to be success-driven, perfectionistic, and eager to improve. Now, it's interesting to note that, again, if I just got a couple of questions slightly differently, I would have been put into the assertive category, and that description of me would have been radically different. With just a few slight changes, I would have been given a radically different description. Because I'm only 54% turbulent. Then they want my email address so they can send me the results. No, I'm not going to give you my email address, thank you. So I'm a mediator, which was this kind of hippie girl, not the one I thought. And then they're going to give me loads of paragraphs describing how I'm the mediator. I'm just going to take a screenshot of this just to show. Do we have... okay, that'll do. So apparently I'm the mediator. Now, let's continue because we're not finished. I just want to talk about the test a little bit more and give a few more comments. Were you surprised by the fact that I ended up being the mediator? Jackie, not the protagonist as you expected. Something completely different, in fact. So I talked before about test reliability, test validity. Right, so let's continue with my notes. Now, I have taken the test before. I've taken this test twice before. Did I get the same results? I don't remember actually what the other results were. I just want to put into this document here. I just want to put into the document the result there that I got. INFP mediator. Now, what about my results? So let's look at the results when I took the test on the 11th of December. 11th of December 2023. I took the test at work, not because of work. I was just at work when I did it, and I had a bad stomach, if that makes any difference. The result then was that I got INTP, which means I was the logician. Right? So when I took it in December, I was a logician. Logicians are innovative inventors with an unquenchable thirst for knowledge. Flexible thinkers enjoy approaching life unconventionally, often seeking out unlikely paths. And I was considered to be assertive on that particular day rather than turbulent, which is what I got today. And also, I took the test on Friday the 19th of January, and that was in 2023 as well, and I felt a bit tired. And I got INFJ, which was, again, totally different. I was an advocate on that particular day, So in January last year, I was an advocate, and it said, advocates are quiet visionaries, often serving as inspiring or tireless idealists. These rare types are open-minded and imaginative, applying care and creativity. Yeah, all right. That's interesting, isn't it? Totally different results each time. Although every time I got introverted, each time I took the test. So, all right. Now, as I said before, I'm skeptical about this. Now, you saw me taking the test, right? You saw me going through my my justifications for each question, and I was sincere and tried to be honest in my responses, right? I really did try to respond to those in good faith, but I got different results each time I took the test. Now, do you remember which thing that relates to? So that was about test reliability, where the test should give you the same results each time. If a test is a good test, it should give you the same results every single time, right? But apparently I've got 3 different personality types. So let me go through some problems and criticisms. So first of all, poor validity. This is the very first and most important thing. So according to its critics, this test doesn't accurately predict a person's performance in any way. And it's basically meaningless and comparable to a horoscope in terms of its validity, right? So that's horoscopes like, star signs, Gemini, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Libra, and so on. So it's kind of comparable to a horoscope in terms of its validity, this test, unfortunately. And this is based on stuff I've read as well, criticisms of this test, including stuff that's just written on Wikipedia, right? A fairly objective source. So it's comparable to a horoscope. But of course, plenty of people out there believe horoscopes, including you, maybe. Maybe you believe in the things you read in your horoscope. Maybe you really do. And you might disagree with my criticisms that I'm going to give here because you like horoscopes and you like this test because you feel it gives you a meaningful sense of perspective and insight into yourself, which is kind of the point, really, that regardless of whether the test is accurate, whether it really does tell you about yourself, people just like it anyway because they get the sense that it's giving them perspective and insight. It makes people feel good about themselves. A bit like horoscopes. But if horoscopes, right, so if you do believe in horoscopes, and I don't, I think there's other things going on with horoscopes. But if you do believe in horoscopes, then and they are true, and in fact we really can predict someone's future from horoscopes, why don't newspapers put them on the front page, right? If they can predict the future, why don't they go on the front page? Instead, the newspapers always put them in the middle somewhere, down at the bottom next to the puzzles, right? You've got a crossword, you've got Sudoku, and then you've got some horoscopes. Why are they down there next to the puzzles? I don't know. More about horoscopes in a moment. So poor validity, apparently. Also poor reliability, as we've seen. People typically get different results when they take the test multiple times, as we see with mine, right? 3 different types. Also, we have an inaccurate representation of character traits, which is kind of the thing I was bothered by as I went through the test. The test presents its character traits as independent from each other and mutually exclusive, right? These categories, like introvert and extrovert, for example, it presents these things as mutually exclusive, meaning you can't be one and the other. You can only be one or the other, right? They are mutually exclusive. In each question, you're either one or the other, right? You're either, for example, introvert or extrovert or the other categories. But in reality, these things are not mutually exclusive concepts, and we can be a bit of both, and maybe it depends on the situation as well. It's possible to be a bit of both, but the test rigidly divides you into one or the other with every single question. This is true for all of its categories, which are presented as mutually exclusive. Even though there's a middle position in each question, you will ultimately be put in one of the categories, which can result in a radically different description. There's also the question of a conflict of interest here. So, there are huge questions of independence, bias, and conflict of interest. Now, when we talk of conflict of interest, we talk about, for example, the people who make this test and sell this test and also run that website that I was looking at. It's the same company. What is their purpose? What's their interest? Now, is it in producing an accurate test of psychological traits? Or is their interest really about selling this test to companies? Is it really profit driven, or is it results driven? Now, all of the research behind this test is done by the same organization that produces and sells the test worldwide, making a large profit from it. So, what do you think? Do you think that they're going to be really objective about this? And that's always a problem. When the same people who make the test do the research for the test, if the test is based on research by the people selling the test, then that's a clear conflict of interest. Then we've got the Barnum effect, and this is where I'm going to talk about horoscopes. So the test has been likened to horoscopes as they both rely on the Barnum effect and flattery and confirmation bias, leading participants to personally identify with descriptions that are somewhat desirable, vague, and widely applicable. So this is fascinating to me, if you think about it. So the Barnum effect is basically what happens when people are given a statement which is kind of vague, that could apply to anyone really, and people read it, they think it's specifically intended for them, and as a result they consume it, they take it as being specifically for them. So this is true for horoscopes, right? You could actually, and there have been tests done with horoscopes in this way, where people are given their readings, right, and they believe that the reading is like correct. So I remember one test, and it's in that Derren Brown book, Tricks of the Mind. He describes a test where a group of people are gathered together, I think they're students, and they're told that they're going to be given a very accurate reading, psychological reading, and it's very accurate. And they're asked to do a questionnaire, and they're also asked to give an item of theirs that's really precious to them. So it could be a ring or some other item that they really feel strongly about, that they're asked to give that in with the questionnaire. And then they're told that they're going to be given a psychological profile that's very, very, very accurate. You could do the same thing with horoscopes, where you remove the names of the horoscopes like Cancer, Libra, Gemini. You remove them or shuffle them around and then give them back to people. People will read the horoscope that's not even theirs, and they will still have exactly the same response to the one that is theirs. They'll feel like, wow, that's really true, even though it's in fact a random one. So with this other test, these people did these things, and then afterwards they were given envelopes, they were given their precious items back. And this thing about the precious items, there was a suggestion that there was some sort of psychic power involved. The person giving the reading was presented as a psychic. Each participant was given an envelope with a detailed paragraph explaining in detail about them as a person. And each person was asked to read their paragraph, and like most of the people found it was true. Most people were really surprised at how perfectly it described them and their personality and their life. And then it was revealed that every single paragraph that every single person had received was exactly the same. And it worked because the statements in the paragraph were vague enough they were vague enough so that anyone reading it who wanted to believe it was written about them would interpret it in that way. And that's how horoscopes work. They're vague enough, with enough like vaguely specific things, that you'll read it and you will basically interpret it as being perfectly written about you. For example, it might say, this week might begin a bit difficult, but by Friday things are going to look a little bit easier. That actually could apply to everyone, because everybody's week normally starts out difficult, but by Friday things are a little bit easier, right? And, that's just one example. So that's the Barnum effect. Also, flattery. So to flatter someone is to tell someone very positive things about them. And then they kind of, oh God, you're flattering me. And if you flatter someone, you can make them more open to manipulation as well, right? If someone is flattered, you can probably manipulate them a bit more. So this is very flattering, because the descriptions that are given are full of flattery. It's all very positive. And I said before that the test has there's just no negativity in here at all. It's all positive. It's all flattery. It's like, you're very intuitive. You're brilliant at planning. You're a great administrator. You're very innovative. It's all very, very flattering. So everyone reads their evaluation and everyone is happy with what they've been given, because it's a very flattering description. And also, it suffers from confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is where someone's attitude or someone's belief about something is confirmed by whatever information they receive. Okay? So in this case, if I believe that I am an introvert, right? If I want to believe I'm an introvert, then my belief will be confirmed by everything, by the way I respond to the questions, and also by the way I understand myself. I need a bit more information about confirmation bias. Confirmation bias. Hold on a sec. Confirmation bias is the tendency to search for, interpret, favour, and recall information in a way that confirms or supports one's prior beliefs or values. People display this bias when they select information that supports their views, ignoring contrary information, or when they interpret ambiguous evidence as supporting their existing attitudes. So if you're given an ambiguous description of yourself, you will interpret it in the way that confirms what you already believe. Okay? People believe the results because they want to. It confirms what they already believe or what they want to believe about themselves, and it flatters them in the process. It makes them feel good. Everyone is a winner, and nobody has any particular reason to disagree or criticise the results of the test. This is probably the reason why the MBTI test is such a success, because it flatters everyone. Everyone feels good at the end, and apparently it doesn't even matter if it's completely inaccurate. I did an episode many years ago, episode 117. It was called Psychics Cold Reading Barnum Statements. It was an episode all about the psychological techniques which are used by psychics when they do cold readings. And a lot of that is related to Barnum statements. So you could go back and listen to that. If you find this interesting, you can go back and listen to it. And there's loads of examples of Barnum statements and the things I've been talking about there. That's episode 117. So continuing to talk about the test. So this MBTI test is in fact just a glorified version of online quizzes such as, which Harry Potter character are you? But in fact, it's more successful than that because it presents itself as serious, backed up by research, and all the results are positive, unlike in the Harry Potter quiz, because nobody's happy if they end up being Draco Malfoy or something. So, sorry, Jackie, if I don't know to what extent you really believe in the test. Maybe it's just a bit of fun for you. But I don't believe it's really an accurate description of your personality, because as we've seen, it's not reliable, and apparently it's not valid. So if we continue to debunk the test, which I do find interesting, let's look at some other examples of what other people have said. So Jordan Peterson, is he a psychologist, a psychiatrist? What is he? He's a psychologist and author. Now, I'm not a big fan of Jordan Peterson. I find some of the things he says interesting, of course, but I'm not like his biggest fan or anything. But he does a good job of debunking the test. You can see a video of his online. We're not going to watch it now because it might cause my podcast episode to be struck down on YouTube. But there's a video from Armchair Typology, and it says Jordan Peterson on MBTI. I can give you a summary of the main points he makes. I'll try not to do it in that Jordan Peterson voice that where he speaks like this. I'm not going to speak like Jordan Peterson when I do it. The probability that a company will use a personality... I'm not going to speak like him. But anyway, this is what he said about the MBTI test. He said the probability that a company will use a personality test is inversely related to the accuracy of the test. Right? The probability that a company will use a test is inversely related to the accuracy of the test, meaning that the less accurate the test is, the easier it is to sell, which is quite a shocking thing to realize. So, right? It doesn't matter if the test is inaccurate. In fact, the less accurate it is, the easier it is for a company to sell it to another company. So there are other factors which cause this test to be so popular. It's really nothing to do with its ability to accurately describe your personality or predict what you will be good at. Companies buy the MBTI test a lot. It sells about 1 million units per year, but it has zero predictive utility, meaning it's useless in terms of predicting what people will do. This is according to Jordan Peterson. The psychology community agrees. The jury, everyone agrees. Anyone in the profession agrees that this test is inaccurate and invalid. Apparently, it has zero predictive utility with regards to performance prediction. It doesn't predict performance. It won't predict what people will actually do. So why do people use it? Because it doesn't hurt anyone's feelings. In fact, it makes people feel good. Companies ultimately want their staff to have high morale. They want the staff to be motivated. According to Peterson, the test is old, it's based on unsound and outmoded psychological techniques and should be replaced by another test, which is called the Big Five. Apparently the Big Five is very interesting because it's based on language. That basically the way the Big Five test works, which apparently is a better one, is that they analysed every single adjective that they could find. The developers of the test looked at every single adjective that they could find to describe personality and broke it down into 5 basic categories. Where is that? Yeah. Openness to experience, conscientiousness, that's basically whether you're organised or whether you're careless, extroversion, that's whether you're outgoing or energetic or whether you're solitary or reserved, agreeableness, that's whether you're friendly and compassionate or critical or judgmental, and neuroticism, that's whether you're sensitive or nervous versus resilient or confident. The test is based on these 5 factors and on other more valid research and methods. That's another story for another time. You can take the Big Five personality test if you want. Just Google it. But again, that's another story for another time. Maybe I'll do that one. There's more stuff. There's more stuff I could say about the test and criticizing it, including an article I found on Vox.com, which cited the lack of scientific evidence, the poor theoretical basis. It is based on Carl Jung's theories, which were untested about personality types. He presented that as really rough observations rather than strict classifications. The principles that he described were not really grounded in experiments or data. They were just theoretical. We talked about the false binaries, the mutually exclusive categories, which are oversimplistic, inconsistent and inaccurate results, as I said, and the fact it's disregarded by the psychological community. It has more entertainment value than it does practical use, which again might account for the fact it's so popular all around the world. So I've heard that this test has been really popular in South Korea and was used by people in sort of dating situations, taking the test as a way to like hook up with people whose personality matched yours, you know? So basically, in conclusion, I don't think the test really describes who I am, but maybe you'll just disagree with me. You know, if you really want to believe in the test and you feel like it validated the things that you already believed about me or about yourself, then you're probably going to accept it, right? But for me, I think that the test is a bit of fun, and it's interesting to explore it. It's an interesting way to help us reflect on ourselves and to think about ourselves and talk about ourselves. That's definitely a good thing. It helps us to talk about ourselves, but I don't think it accurately assesses our personality types at all. So it shouldn't really be used in a serious way. But anyway, there you go. So, Jackie, I hope you found that interesting. Everyone else, I hope you found that interesting too. That's the end of this episode. Leave your comments in the comments section. As always, I'm interested to know what you think. So, what do you think about all of this? Do you think the test is valid or reliable? Now, I don't really know why I'm asking for your opinion on that, because it isn't a question of opinion, because it's not valid or reliable. But what did you think of my result? Did you agree with the assessment that I am a mediator, or did you think? Do you agree with the one from December when I was what was I, an advocate, or do you think I was something else? What were the other results? I can't remember now. And have you taken the test? What result did you get? What did it tell you about yourself, and what did you think? Do you agree with it, or are you skeptical about it like me? That's the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, okay, everybody? It helps the podcast. Tell your friends about Luke's English Podcast. Tell your young friends, tell the next generation about this podcast, so that we can keep going even when everyone else is old and grey. Maybe there'll be new people listening. All right. Good. I look forward to reading your comments. Let me know that you're not a skeleton. I got a comment yesterday, that said, Luke, if I fall asleep during the episode, does that mean I'm a skeleton? I don't know. I don't think so. I think that just means that maybe you're a sleeping skeleton. I don't know. I think an awful lot of people sleep while they listen to my podcast, which is a bit disturbing. I've seen comments from people talking about how they like to sleep during the episodes. People saying, I love listening to your podcast. It really helps me sleep. I don't know how I feel about that. That's not really a compliment. So maybe what I should do is I should start sleeping in episodes as well. If you're all sleeping while you listen to this, maybe I can sleep as well. And, and that way I can save my time a little bit more and use my time more effectively. Maybe next time I'll just have a little sleep for the last 30 minutes of the episode if everyone else is asleep. But anyway, if you're still awake and you're not a skeleton, let me know in the comments section, and I'll speak to you again on the podcast soon. But for now, it's time to say goodbye. Bye, 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 bye.